Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it.
Hello, it's Film Detour Podcast, and we're back. I'm John.
And I'm Bob. And we're back just in time for the Halloween show.
Yes, the Halloween show. And just a quick note, we're doing this via computer because we're not together.
This is Studio R for remote.
And I'm sure all of you people that listen to podcasts know the audio on all these podcasts are all over the place, depending on if you're in a hotel room, a bedroom, a closet, a basement. So if you hear barking dog,
howling wolf,
it's
all good.
Okay, so this is the Halloween show.
And today's Halloween feature is, John,
X, the man with the X-ray eyes.
And the interesting thing I noticed now, because I've always remembered it as X, the man with the X-ray eyes, the actual title of the film is just X in quotation marks.
Oh.
Yeah.
I always remembered it as the man with the X-ray eyes. I never remembered the X.
I didn't remember the X part at all. Yeah, I agree. To be honest, all I remember was Ray Milland's eyes.
Yes. We'll get to that. So X, the man with the X-ray eyes, made in 1963, directed by Roger Corman.
You know, Roger Corman's got a really interesting history. He had a book out sometime in the 90s, I think 91, 92 or something. And the book's title was How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood and Never Lost a Dime. And he actually directed about 50 some odd movies, you know, somewhere in the realm that Hitchcock did, though he was not quite a Hitchcock, but he was a very good filmmaker. And he set out to do this, not so much for the art of it, but to make money.
He was a good director. My favorite movie of his that he directed is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yes, and that's very much a Hollywood movie, and it was a big hit. A strange casting choice with Jason Robards as Scarface.
And George Segal as his nemesis. But the great thing about that movie is it moves. It's such a tight film. And it's almost like a comic book gangster film. I think it's a fantastic film.
It's a great movie. In fact, I love the warning. I saw a poster recently. The warning on that was, this motion picture depicts, without flinching, the most shocking event of America's lawless era, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I mean, he made a lot of cheesy movies, like Sorority House Girl, Rock All Night, The She-Gods of Shark Reef. But they do have certain elements in them that show he was a craftsman. He was in business to make money, but he also could make movies, and he could bring in people, writers, etc., who knew how to write fast or knew how to put things together in a certain way. And they were not very long movies. You know, a lot of them were under 2 hours, certainly.
Yeah.
Bucket of Blood is one of my favorite cheesy movies that he made. It's very funny. And starring Dick Miller, which, you know, if you're going to have a Corman film, you have to have Dick Miller in it.
One of my favorite films of his is from the 70s, and it's actually a sci-fi film. It's called Death Race 2000. He was the producer. It had an early Sylvester Stallone.
And also David
Carradine. And it was such an interesting plot. And it had some great, for no money, it was a great way to show the future with these crazy cars. And
yeah, the cars. Absolutely, the cars. And you know, and how many points you get for running over an old lady or somebody with a baby carriage or something. I mean, it's pure exploitation. You know, Death Race 2000. I mean, it can't get much more Corman than that.
And then there's also what they call the Corman Film School, where he mentored so many future filmmakers.
Martin Scorsese.
Francis Ford Coppola.
And Ron Howard was another one.
Ron Howard, Jonathan Demme.
And the list goes on. Monty Hellman, one of our favorite directors, was also under Corman's tutelage.
Yeah.
For me, when I think of Corman, though, I think of the Poe films. And he's highly regarded for the Poe films. Some are better than other ones. My personal favorite is the Tomb of Ligeia, but the use of color in The Mask of the Red Death is really, really amazing. So if you get a chance, check out the Poe films for this season because they're beautifully done.
Well, the great thing about it is Ray Milland, who stars in X, Man with the X-Ray Eyes, he
Right.
seemed to have his career got a second wind with Corman. This is a classic actor, a Hollywood actor, has been around forever.
Absolutely. I mean, he was a real leading man in his day, a handsome guy, tall and thin, and he made a lot of movies.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, The Uninvited, I think is one of the best ghost stories ever on film.
Yeah, that's on one of our Halloween lists, certainly.
It's classy. It's so classy. It's beautifully shot. And Ray Milland is terrific in that.
Yeah.
He's really great.
He was in a couple of very good Fritz Lang noir films, Ministry
Right.
of Fear, and also The Big Clock.
Yeah, I love that movie. That's a great movie.
And,
Absolutely.
And one of my favorite, The Lost Weekend.
Yeah, he won an Academy Award for that in 1945. So what I love is I saw the trailer for X, the Man with the X-Ray Eyes, the other day, and it said, Ray Milland in the most challenging role since his Academy Award-winning Lost Weekend. You know, Lost Weekend was made in 1945. This was made in 1963. I don't know if it was the most challenging role since Lost Weekend, but you know, you can't beat Corman for a little promotion.
Well, I'll say this. You know, I've seen this movie since childhood, Man with the X-Ray Eyes, and just watching it again recently, he does a very good job in this movie.
No matter what the situation, you throw Ray Milland in, even the cheesiest movies imaginable, like the Thing with Two Heads. You know, he's co-starring with my favorite actor, Rosie Greer.
Hey, if you have to share a body with Rosie Greer.
Yeah, I mean, if you can pull off sharing a body as just a head stuck into Rosie Greer's turtleneck, I mean, you got to give this guy a lot of credit for acting, straight through to the end. And then we have his co-star, Diana van der Vlis, who I really like. I think she's terrific. She did a lot of television. She didn't do too many movies, but she did do a movie that we know well, John, The Incident, starring Martin Sheen and Tony Musante.
Tony Musante. Should we say Martin Sheen and Toma?
Toma, yes, the precursor to the Beretta Show.
Yes, lasted maybe 2 seasons.
And she was also in a big movie with Burt Lancaster in 1968, The Swimmer.
Yeah, based on the John Cheever story.
I think she's terrific in this. And
she's okay.
And I'm sorry.
I may differ with you on that one. She's okay.
No, I beg to differ. I think she's terrific because she has a lot of confidence, and I think she's sexy, and I think she's got a great voice, kind of like a Patricia O'Neill kind of a husky voice.
I was going to say, she's got a husky voice. She kind of reminds me also of an early Angie Dickinson.
And then we have another really well-known actor. He's not a household name by any stretch. Harold J. Stone.
Harold J. Stone. Love his face.
He's a great face. He did so many movies. He did a lot of television too. One of my favorites is Somebody Up There Likes Me with Paul Newman.
Yes.
It's a great movie. He's in that. He's also in The Wrong Man, the Hitchcock film with Henry Fonda. And you may not know this, John, or remember it, he's in Spartacus.
Yep, he's in Spartacus. He's in a lot of those kind of biblical stories, the greatest story ever told. He's always like a Roman general or something. And he's also in one of my films we mentioned earlier, St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
And also, I do believe he is in every television show from 1949 to 1986.
I was going to say, I was going to call him Mr. TV.
Yeah, he's in every television show. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, he's got one of those faces that if you may not know his name, but as soon as you see his face,
Boom.
You've seen him in 1,000 things.
And then we got to get to a feature player in the movie, without question, Don Rickles.
Yeah, interesting.
Now we all know Rickles. We all know Rickles as the insult comic or whatever you want to call him, but he made some movies, not a lot. Made some movies. Mostly they were kind of cheesy movies like Beach Blanket Bingo and Muscle Beach Party with Annette and Frankie. But he also did Run Silent, Run Deep.
He's really good in Run Silent, Run Deep.
He really is.
And that's a tough drama.
Absolutely. And you got 2 huge stars. You got Burt Lancaster, you got Clark Gable.
Yeah. Actually, the interesting thing about it, Don Rickles did serve in the Navy in World War II.
I did not know that.
And it takes place, Run Silent, Run Deep takes place on a sub.
And we can't forget Casino. The unique thing about Casino is Mr. Motormouth, Mr. Insult, doesn't say a word in the entire movie. So, moving right along with the production, he had a really good cinematographer he worked with. His name is Floyd Crosby, and he did a bunch of Corman stuff, like Machine Gun Kelly,
Yeah,
and The Raven. But he also he was the DP for High Noon.
High Noon, which is a Fred Zinnemann film, and also
Right.
From Here to Eternity.
This guy could really work at a low budget or a big budget. He was a real down and dirty craftsman, and he could pretty much do whatever you threw at him.
As you said, he was kind of a journeyman cinematographer, like in the 60s.
Yep.
Hollywood made a whole bunch of films in the 60s and 70s. They were almost like TV movies, and it was just like quick setups, quick lighting. And
Right.
this film, Man with the X-Ray Eyes, is like that. You can see it's all sets and stuff, but I think it looks great.
Very interesting lighting, and I think the color is really terrific for a cheapo movie. I think it's terrific.
Yes. The surprising print that I saw. It
Absolutely.
really holds up. I was shocked at how good it looked.
Absolutely. John, the one little aside here is he goes all the way back to 1943, working with Orson Welles.
Oh. The next person we'll talk about is the composer, Lex Baxter.
This is a really good score, John. I really love the score.
It's a very 60s score, right? It's got every 60s kind of orchestration you can imagine in this film.
But it's creepy.
Oh,
there's a real creepy
very
element
creepy,
to it.
Yeah.
He's got this kind of a wailing banshee thing going on there. He's got this woman singing. She sounds like a wailing banshee, and it just gets under your skin.
Is there a theremin in this too?
I don't believe it's a theremin. I think it's just the voice of her, but he also has this creepy organ sound as well.
That's what I keep thinking is like the theremin. It's got that weird kind of high pitch note that keeps
But I'll
going.
tell you, from the first couple of notes that you see it in the beginning, we'll talk about the opening shot. I'm in right away, and it's already weirding me out and gotten under my skin. So
yeah. But just to go on, just really briefly with Lex Baxter, I mean, he was pretty diverse. He did movies like Beach Blanket Bingo.
Yeah. Everybody seemed to work on Beach Blanket Bingo. I don't know what the story is on that.
And I just have to mention two films he did. I've never seen them, but just by the title, I have to see them. One is called White Slave Ship.
All right, there you go.
And the other one is called Goliath and the Vampire.
Goliath and the Vampire. I have to say, I've not seen either one of those two, so I guess I have some homework to do.
I mean, I haven't read the Bible since I was a kid, but I don't know where Goliath and the Vampire meet up.
I think that's in chapter 12, Luke. So just one little shout out to Ted Koodley. He's the makeup guy.
Oh.
And I got to tell you, what he does for Ray Milland and Ray Milland's eyes, oh, brother. Man, oh, man. Pretty creepy stuff.
It must be like a very early use of contact lenses, don't you think?
No, those actually because of the drops you put in his eyes, John. It actually looks that way.
Oh, I see. I believe you.
I could tell. All right, so let's get to the movie. You open it up. You got a full screen of an eyeball, freeze frame of an eyeball. And then you get this creepy music coming up along with it. And the music goes on for what? I don't know, 2 minutes or something like that. And all you got is this eyeball staring you in the face.
Again, you notice right away the color because it's bright red.
It's lurid. It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's creepy because it's so intense.
What's interesting about this movie, the title sequence, the beginning and the end, you could tell he's using available footage.
Absolutely.
I mean, they really hold on that eyeball for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a still frame, and it just weirds you out because the music's weird, and you're going, all right, can we please move to the next scene or something? And when they cut, it's the eyeball floating in some kind of a scientist beaker or something in this kind of reddish liquid.
Why do all these movies have that scientist beaker with the bubbles and the
well, you
smoke?
gotta get it. You gotta get in that solution. That solution keeps the thing alive, I guess. And, so and then you go to the titles themselves, and this creepy music is still going, and you got this kind of this kind of hypnotist pinwheel type thing, kind of like the beginning of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Swirling around. It's in purple and black, and it's swirling around. It's swirling around. And then you get, over the top of that, you get American International's logo.
American International Pictures, yeah. Which, a quick aside, American International Pictures specialized in a lot of teenage exploitation films in the 50s and 60s.
Absolutely. The drive-in circus.
Samuel Z. Arkoff was kind of the main producer there.
And James A. Nicholson.
And I was doing research, and I just have to read this because it's great. There's a thing called the Arkoff formula. So if you spell his name...
Do tell, John. Do tell.
A for action. R for revolution.
Of course.
K for killing.
You got to have that.
O for oratory.
Beautiful.
F, fantasy.
Yeah.
And then F for fornication. Those are the elements you need for an Arkoff film.
Well, I tell you, Corman definitely uses all those elements without question. I like how he took every letter of his last name and kind of filled in the blanks. So the movie starts off after the title sequence, and we see Harold J. Stone, who's a doctor, an optometrist, and his name is Sam Brandt. And I totally buy, John. I totally buy the relationship between him and Dr. Xavier, played by Ray Milland. You see there's a chemistry between the two of them, and you feel like they're actually friends.
Yeah, they're also colleagues. They're both doctors in some kind of a research capacity, right?
And so Ray Milland, or Dr. Xavier, is getting his eyes examined. And, his eyes are perfectly fine. And his buddy Sam says, what are you doing in here? What's the story? And we find out that the Dr. Xavier has been doing experiments. He's created this hormone compound serum, and he's trying to advance human sight. But his buddy doesn't like it too much because he thinks, you only got one set of eyes, and what's this stuff really going to do to you?
Well, it's a very interesting theory. He's talking about, and I'm going to paraphrase, he's developing a way to sensitize the human eye so that you can see all the spectrum of light rays.
Right.
Which sounds pretty good to me. But like down to gamma rays and X-ray and up to, like, as he says, it's maybe the human eye sees maybe 10% of the spectrum.
Right. What about the other 90%?
Yeah.
Maybe we only see 10% for a reason, John.
Yeah.
As I said before, I really like Diane Vandervlis. She's Dr. Fairfax. We quickly established Dr. Xavier's relationship with her and what the situation was with her in the first 5 minutes. She's we call her the liaison to the quote unquote foundation that ponies up the money to fund the research that Dr. Xavier is doing. Right.
And it's clear they're kind of questioning his research because he's, it seems like they can pull the rug out from under him in terms of funding.
So what does he do? He takes Dr. Fairfax into his laboratory, as they say in horror films. And he goes to the lab and he's going to show her exactly what he's been working on.
And it's this weird yellow serum in this little bottle, which I never noticed has an X on it.
Of course, you got to have an X on it. Just in case you're using Visine, you want to not use the Visine and get the red out. You want to use the X brand.
And so, Bob, what do they do with this serum?
So they take the monkey out of the cage, and a couple of drops in each eye.
The poor monkey.
Monkey does not seem too thrilled about it, but Dr. Xavier is totally confident this is going to work.
I love the close-up when they try to get the drops in because it's real, it's live, and you can see him trying to put the drops. He gets it in one eye, and it kind of falls down the cheek of the other eye. And
John, when's the last time you tried to put eye drops in a monkey? Huh?
Bob, the other day.
It's been a while. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, now I understand.
Okay.
So the thing is, the monkey reacts to it right away, and they have this little setup in this cage where he flicks these little switches to show what light he sees.
What color light?
Right. So he sees the white light. That's initial. That's an easy one. Hits the switch, but then he can see the blue. and then he can see the red, and he can see through the paper that they've blocked off, that Xavier's blocked off. So he's, in essence, he's got kind of X-ray vision. He can see through these things, and it goes off without a hitch. Dr. Fairfax is really impressed. She's going to take this information back to the Foundation, but the monkey dies.
Yeah, he slowly dies. And it's very creepy. Like, even Dr. Fairfax, she's like, what did he see? What did he see? It's almost like this monkey freaks the hell out because his eyes are suddenly seeing everything or something.
But that's what Dr. Xavier's, it kind of explains, because they do this little autopsy thing, and she does, tissue work and whatnot, and they can't find anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with the tissues. There's nothing wrong with his heart or anything else. And Xavier comes up with the idea that he just couldn't comprehend what he saw. You buy this movie because it seems really logical. It's not like, like I said, the Rosie Greer thing where you're transplanting somebody else's head on Rosie Greer's neck or shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, this all seems pretty damn plausible. And Xavier's not a bad guy. He's not some sort of crazy mad scientist. He really wants to use his research to better mankind.
Well, it's interesting because when I watched it recently, I always remembered it as, exploitation film, whatever. But as you're watching it, the script is actually pretty darn good. And the dialogue, the scientific dialogue for 1963, it seems very credible, which gives it a creepiness. And what I love about that scene also is as they're discussing the monkey and they're in the laboratory with all the vials and everything, they both light up cigarettes and start smoking.
Milland takes the Bunsen burner and he lights the two cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. That's much safer, Bob. But it's like you're in a lab with chemicals and let's smoke some cigarettes.
Yeah, just break up the Bunsen burner and light a couple of butts up. But you know what? It almost felt like, it was like an after sex scene or something, because they're just kind of there puffing on their cigarettes.
Bob, for researchers, that's after sex.
Okay, fine.
And so the writers are Ray Russell and Robert Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan had more of a real writer's background, and he certainly did a lot of exploitation stuff.
Yeah, but
he also developed into a really good writer and wrote for bigger things. And he wrote the first episode of The Fugitive, for instance.
Oh, and then he did some great films in the 70s up to the 80s. We've talked about a couple of these. Prime Cut.
Absolutely.
Prime Cut's a great movie.
Prime Cut's amazing. And it's one of the weirdest scripts I've ever seen. It's really, really a strange setup with Gene Hackman and Lee Marvin.
Yeah.
And also, we did the show on this movie, The French Connection 2.
Very surprising, right?
Which is a terrific screenplay.
Like within 10 years, he goes from Man with the X-Ray Eyes to French Connection 2.
Muscle Beach Party and Bikini Beach he wrote too. So, I mean, this guy, whatever the situation was, he could write for it. He also wrote a movie called The River with Sissy Spacek and Mel Gibson,
right,
which was pretty popular in its day. But he also wrote Revolution, John, with Al Pacino.
Yeah. And a really good film that kind of went by the wayside, Waking the Dead.
I did not see that.
Billy Crudup's in it. It's actually pretty damn good.
Okay, so back to the movie. One of the things that really struck me about watching Ray Milland work with the actress Diane Vandervlis and also with Harold J. Stone is that Corman may have made cheesy low budget movies and cranked them out, but he knew how to get the right actors. He knew how to get good actors to do the job, to really lend polish to some of these films.
What's interesting is Ray Milland, he's on the waning side of his career. So sure, Corman knew, I could probably pick these great actors for a song because they're not getting as much work.
He still was smart enough to get the names, but he's also getting the talent too. So it's not going to be, like one of these, grade Z movies.
Exactly.
So Dr. Xavier, he's upset that his experiments are going to just be gone now. They're going to pull the money. So he starts to basically be a guinea pig for his own experiments. And he ropes in his buddy Sam Brandt to to put the first set of drops in and see what happens.
Now, I have to say, after you just see that monkey die, this guy, he's got some balls. He's just going to have his buddy, his compatriot, put these drops in his eyes.
He's got one mind. He's got a one-track mind, and that's it.
Oh,
he's gonna do this thing, do or die. But the thing is, you got Harold J. Stone, or Dr. Brandt rather, he's a buddy of yours. He doesn't want to do it. He does the drops, and then he says, "Okay, why don't you just wait for a little while?" No, no.
Right.
I want to put more drops. I want to put more drops in now. I want to really, it's like, it reminds me of a Ralph Cramden in the $64,000 answer episode where he says, "I'm going straight to the $64,000 answer."
Well, it's actually a very nice moment when he does take the drops, and it's like, it takes like 8 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And the camera just kind of tracks and dollies around his head.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're going into his head. It's a very cool shot.
But once again, that's, Corman was a craftsman. He was a real movie person. He was a real lover of movies. They cut the money, like I said, and now he doesn't know what he's doing. He's basically like Felix Unger. He's a man with no place to go. And, they're worried about him. Dr. Fairfax is worried about him, and his buddy Sam is worried about him. So Sam wants to calm him down because he thinks that maybe these drops are getting to his mind. He's not right. So he goes over and tries to, basically tranquilize him. And this gets Dr. Xavier really upset. And I got to tell you, John, if you're going to give a friend of yours an injection, a sedative to calm him down, don't do it near a high window.
Well, it's a high window. It's on a high floor, but don't do it near a window that goes down to your fucking knees.
So, struggle ensues, and out the window poor Sam goes. And Sam was only trying to be a nice guy.
I have to say, that was pretty shocking. Even in this day and age, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
The poor guy
absolutely.
goes right out the window.
Right out the window, boom. I like windows that have a little more of smaller panes and maybe somewhere to open it up. That whole big plate glass thing, that gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it.
Well, you also feel bad about, I actually felt bad about Xavier there, because he's almost out of control. And the way the scene plays out between him and Fairfax, you get this dread that there's no going back at that point.
Right. Exactly. But John, just let me jump out one second because I wanted to remember this scene. We're moving the plot along and stuff, but I want to remember the scene a little before this. The blonde doctor, Dr. Fairfax, wants to, basically after the monkey dies, she wants to take him to this party that her young friends are throwing, and they're just got to take his mind off all these things. Have a couple of drinks, and a little music, maybe a little dancing, and I got to tell you, this 1963 party is hilarious.
It's fantastic.
Hilarious.
It's fantastic. I have to say, it's a pretty hip happening party. It's almost like this kind of 60s Rat Pack vibe, but everyone is clearly young except for our Dr. Xavier.
Yeah, Dr. Xavier is Joe middle age right there for sure. And there's a bunch of young hip cats, dancing the dances of the dead.
Yes.
So it's what I found most interesting about the scene was Dr. Fairfax is a very pretty blonde, and she's attracted to him. And then she gets pulled off. Somebody wants to dance with Dr. Fairfax. So, they go off and they dance. And this really pretty blonde, young blonde, she's got to be what, 20s, John, at least?
It's called statuesque blonde.
Statuesque blonde. Very good. That's her. And so she walks up to him, very sexy, and says to him, hi. And she says, I like the way you look, kind of urgent. I've never heard that as a descriptive word for a man.
Hey, he's a happening urgent guy there, Bob.
I like men who look urgent. So she pulls him out onto the dance floor, and I got to tell you, Ray Milland ain't no Gene Kelly.
Bob, Ray Milland doing the twist is worth the price of admission.
Somebody could have pulled. Couldn't somebody pull him apart? Pull him aside and say, you're gonna move the hips there, Ray. Come on, the hips.
I have to say though, you have to give Ray Milland, the actor, credit in this movie. Like, here he is. He's getting older. He's not getting the best roles, and then he's in this Corman film, kind of exploitation. Not really. It's pretty good, but he's really giving it his all. And for him to get on that dance floor and go for it, I have to say, I got to give the guy credit.
Hats off to Ray Milland for that scene. but of course, because it's a Corman movie, you got to put some sex in it.
Yes.
And what he does is suddenly Ray Milland starts rubbing his eyes, and the girl goes, "What, you have a headache?" He goes, No, just my eyes. And he opens his eyes, and everybody's naked. Everybody's dancing naked.
No, they're not naked. He's seeing through their clothes, Bob.
Right. Well, I'm sorry. Because of his X-ray vision, he can see their.
It was the 60s, but it's not a swingers party.
Right. It was exactly. They were swinging, but it wasn't a swingers party. Yes. Thanks for clarifying that, John. They weren't actually naked, but he could see them all naked. And, he gets this kind of shit-eating grin on his face. That's very funny.
It's actually pretty well done because I was watching this that, you cut to his point of view and they are naked and the camera's only showing them either from the shoulders up. Right. And then there's a great shot. We see all their feet, all these naked legs dancing. But when you cut back to him, obviously he's closed and the people behind him are closed. Like the reaction shot, they're closed. They do a pretty good job of it.
I don't know. They must have been in, swimming suits or bikini briefs or whatever the heck it is. But the women are definitely naked from the top.
It feels like it. Yeah.
That's Corman's way of getting a little titillation because in your mind, you're suddenly seeing them completely naked. And they're just dancing up a storm.
Yeah, for like a mainstream 60s film, early 60s, that's pretty titillating.
So then just fast forwarding back, I'm sorry, we did a little aside here, but fast forwarding to...
Hey, if you want to do an aside about people dancing naked, go right ahead, Bob.
All right. See, it's always acceptable when you're talking about naked dancers. So then, this tragedy happens. His friend Sam gets knocked out the window. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, he's either going to get arrested by the cops or get locked up, like he's a loony or something. And what is he going to do? So he takes off and he starts running down the stairway. And there's a great cut. There's a really great cut where it's a POV of his feet running down the stairs. And as he's going down the stairs, we cut to this Ferris wheel, a point of view of someone in a Ferris wheel going down to the ground. And then we take it to the new location and we find out where he's been for the past, month or so, I guess,
It
John?
seems longer, but yes, it's like a cut in time, right? Like suddenly we're in the, several months later.
But that was a clever cut. I really liked that cut a lot.
Yeah, and it's a great little scene because throughout the film, there's some location photography and it's kind of fun to see this kind of 60s, West Coast scenery. And there's some shots of this carnival or amusement park.
This really reminded me of a really good Twilight Zone, and probably because of the carnival in it as well. But in color, in this beautiful, luscious color. But it definitely had that Twilight Zone feel to it.
Yeah, and then of course you go from this live action location footage to the set of the carnival.
But you know what, John?
It's a pretty cool cut, though. I like it.
No, it's a nice cut. But the thing is, okay, we know there's sets that are here, but back in the 60s, that was still a very normal thing to see. And I don't think our brains at the time were sophisticated enough to go, oh, this went from live action to a set. I think we know that now. It's a much more, because of all the location shooting that was done after that point. But I think, if you put yourself back in time, it was a perfectly acceptable cut to do.
Yeah. Well, there's a point I want to make is, especially with the first half of the, with the hospital scenes is because it's low budget, everything is on a set and they're not big elaborate sets, but there's something about the hospital sets. It's very 60s looking. They do a pretty good job with them, I think, for the money they have. It gives the film a very strange feel to it.
Yes,
whether that's by accident or not, I don't know. But the fact that they're kind of these sterile kind of sets,
it's exactly.
It's really weird and creepy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The sterility of it, I think it gives a creepiness to it. Also, I don't think everybody really likes being in a hospital.
No, exactly. So who do we meet at this carnival, Bob?
In comes Don Rickles.
As a barker.
He's the carnival barker. And what is he doing? He's shouting out insults to the people who come in, which is, there you go, stock and trade for Don Rickles.
It's like, Don, we don't have any dialogue for this. Can you help us out here? Sure, no problem.
Sure, no problem. It's Don Rickles. It's not like he can step out and go, oh, that's so-and-so playing a role in such and such. And you just, no, it's Rickles.
Yeah.
You can't take the Rickles out of the Rickles. And what does he do? He does a lot of wisecracking back and forth. He gets into a thing with Dick Miller during the course of the show that they're going to put on in a couple of minutes. And
is Dick Miller one of the young Turks, as I called him?
Yes.
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 So in this crowd of people,
yes.
and this bark is trying to get them into the show, there are these two young Turks, I'll call them, young 60s TV kind
wise
of
asses.
actors. Yeah. And
wise asses.
Who's the actor?
Dick Miller.
Oh, kudos to you for picking that one out.
Yeah, so they go into this show, and now we see what Dr. Xavier has been doing for the past month or so, and he is now he's built as a mind
Montello.
Yeah, Mentallo.
Mentello?
Yeah, like mental. Mentallo.
I heard I was hearing Montello. Mentello. That makes sense.
No, Montello Williams is a different guy. He's a black guy with a.
Well, I thought that's how he got started.
Yeah, Montel Williams he got started as a mind reader. Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah.
So this is what Dr. Xavier has been up to for the past month or so, and he's been making some money down on the pier at the carnival, and they have these little audiences come in, and he pretends he's a mind reader, but actually what he's doing is he's just reading whatever he can off the cards while he's got this blindfold on, because people write cards out.
Well, I think we need to be explicit here, because I'm thinking, so he's developed, as we've seen, X-ray vision.
Right.
He's not necessarily going to read their minds, as you said. He's kind of looking through them in a sense.
Right. So he takes this thing kind of like Karnak, Johnny Carson used to do, and puts the card up to his forehead. But what he's really doing is he's reading the card. And then he could also see into these people when they stand up or whatever, and he could see inside their pockets and these other things because of his X-ray vision.
Right. He's looking through the blindfold.
Right.
And actually through the paper. I guess not through the paper. He's looking through the blindfold, reading this paper with these questions the audience is giving him. Yep.
Exactly. So Rickles, or Crane, as his name is in the movie, Crane gets this idea, and he's always thinking, how can I make some money on this deal? How can I weasel this thing? Rickles plays a great weasel. And he gets this idea that there's more to this guy to make money from than just this low-end stuff. And that just so happens this accident happens. This girl gets hurt, and she's on the ground, and
I'm sorry, she falls off a ride. We see this location footage of some guy with a camera must be up on top of the Ferris wheel looking down on the carnival, and you hear this scream, and this girl apparently falls off a ride and just lands.
Yeah, so everybody goes running over to see what's going on, and Ray Milland, or Dr. Xavier, or Mentallo, whichever one you want to do, he goes over too, and he's a doctor. He knows what things are supposed to look like, what things are not supposed to, and there's no visible signs of bleeding or any trauma to the body. So he looks with his X-ray vision and sees that she's got a broken leg and got broken ribs, and that she needs help. And Rickles, or Crane, says, wait a second. How did you see all that stuff?
Yeah.
There's more to be had by this talent of yours. I got an idea. So he finds a place somewhere.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there, and this is going to stay in the show. I just laughed because they inspect the girl, they call for the ambulance, but they don't stop the rides. Here this girl comes flying off the ride, and they're just going about their business. And I just thought that was pretty funny. The rides kept going.
Look, you pay for a ride, you get your money's worth at this carnival. That's it.
It's not like it's dangerous. Only one girl fell out.
How many times have you seen somebody fall out of a Ferris wheel? They lock you in pretty well with a bar. I don't know. Just, but it's. I guess it's like Hitchcock's MacGuffin. You know, you need something to propel the plot along. So there you go.
Right.
So Crane finds his place in this seedy part of town.
Which again, I'm jumping in here. It's a great backlot set.
Absolutely. Totally, it's a backlot, but it totally works.
It looks as you dingy and seedy and
So you go inside this place, and Crane always has a smirk on his face. He's just an unseemly kind of guy.
He's a huckster. He's like a huckster.
Yeah, absolutely. So he goes in, he shows them the place, and he goes, "Yeah, it's not too nice, but you said you didn't need much." So they get set up and doing this thing. And Crane starts putting the word out that there's a healer in town.
Right.
That this guy can just look at you and you can be healed. And they don't ask for money up front. They just say donations. This is Crane's way of putting the word out even further.
Well, he knows once Mentello does his work, the word's going to go out and people are just going to come.
John, what is the word?
Johannesburg?
Sorry, continue how to do that.
And so, of course, like he builds up his clientele, and soon, tons of people are coming to see this guy.
Yeah, the waiting room is full. Yeah. And you know what? You know what the thing about the set is, John? It gives me the creeps. It's dirty. It's dingy. There's something lonely about it. It doesn't feel right. And you have these poor people who are in pain or suffering from some illness, and they're sitting in this dingy, awful place with just this little screen, rather canvas divider.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of?
What?
Because it had this, at that early 60s time period, the old furniture you're going to have is like this kind of old Victorian type stuff. It reminded me of Mother's house in Psycho.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That same kind
I see that.
Which is a set also. Right. He did that on a TV movie budget.
Sure.
It kind of has that feel to it.
So Crane is making money now. He's very happy with the setup. I like how Rickles is sitting there passing the time with a joke book.
I noticed that. Yeah,
it's actually called a funny book. So
that's where he gets those lines from. We gotta order that book, Bob.
I got a million of them. So.
What's really creepy also about the scene is he wears these kind of dark blackout glasses.
Yes. That's good point, John. I was just going to say.
I mean, he's got to block this crazy vision he has.
Well, they're a combination of dark, big, kind of Steve McGarrett black sunglasses, and also goggles like aviator goggles.
Right, or the old fashioned kind the welders wore.
Yeah. It's just so as much light as you can possibly block out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really like the shades a lot in this too, because it shows you to how bad the situation is with his eyes. I mean, the thing is, he keeps doing these experiments and trying to perfect it. Why
does he keep taking drops? That's what I kept thinking. Like he keeps taking drops.
The only thing I can think of is he's trying to perfect this so he can stabilize it. Because what happens is sometimes it works unbelievably well, and other times it's not working at all. So
that's what's weird about the film for me is he's got this vision that can literally drive you crazy. You can't stop it. Like, think about being in that situation. That's very upsetting to me.
And this is that's a good point, John, because it must make it crazy, because we're getting a lot of POV from him. And they have this process that they're filming it in, Spectrorama.
Oh.
And Spectrorama kind of, to me, looks like you're looking at a 3D movie without the 3D glasses. You're seeing all the color separations.
It's kind of like a prism effect.
Finally, Dr. Fairfax finds him. He's had it with Crane. He wants to just get out of there. And so she's going to take him with her. And Crane starts saying, I'm going to tell who you are. I know who you are. You're that killer doctor. I read about you. And doesn't matter. They get out of there. And finally, Crane starts yelling for the police. So they got to take off.
Right.
And then Xavier hatches a plan. What's the plan, John?
Well, I'm going to use my X-ray vision for a good purpose. We're going to go to that temple of evil in the desert.
Sin. Temple of Sin, John.
Temple of Sin, thank you, in the desert, Las Vegas.
Carl Kolchak is not there at that time, but we're going to Vegas.
This is pre-Carl Kolchak.
So but by about a decade or so.
Yeah.
So he comes up with this plot that he's going to make a bunch of money, and the best place to do that is in Vegas. And he's going to cheat the system in Vegas by reading cards. And the first little trick he pulls is he goes up to a slot machine. Did you notice the cheap slots, John? Did you notice the cheap slot machines were 5 cents back then in 1963?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So he goes over to the bigger, I guess, the dollar slot machines, and he's reading inside the machine to see when the jackpot's going to kick. And he puts in a couple of coins, and boom, he hits the jackpot. And then he sits down. He's going to start playing. He's going to start playing blackjack. And he's reading cards left and right, left and right.
So he can see, just to explain, he can see through the backs of the cards. He can tell what cards the dealer has.
He's literally reading the cards.
Now, let me just make some points on this.
Yeah.
Again, we cut to Vegas. There's a really cool montage of all the Vegas signs with this spectrorama effect. I thought that was kind of artistic. It was almost like a Saul Bass kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. It could look like a Saul Bass title sequence.
But we're in Vegas, and then we cut into this, once again, a Hollywood set of a casino, and it's not the casino we think of.
And it plays right into the Twilight Zone again for me. You ever see the one with the one-armed bandit starring Everett Sloan?
Don't remember it.
All right. At any rate, it reminds me of the Twilight Zone.
And I kept expecting Ace Rothstein to enter the scene, and who would have been his sidekick?
Wrinkles.
How's that possible?
Do you see it all? It all ties in. Scorsese knew what he was talking about when he wanted to place him in Casino.
Kind of blows your mind when you think.
There you
about
go.
it.
That's it. But you know what, John? If you're gonna read cards in Vegas and you're gonna make money, you gotta kind of keep under the radar.
Yes.
So he gets really cocky about it. And then they just basically close down the table on him, and he's going to go cash his stuff out when the manager of the casino comes up to him and says, "We want to ask you a couple questions." And they're basically going to have him arrested for cheating. So he is going to have him arrested, and he grabs him and knocks his glasses off. And John, my childhood flashed in front of me once again. I saw those eyes. Oh my God. They're terrifying. Terrifying.
They're like these black eyes with these gold kind of irises.
Yes. I mean, it freaked me out like I was watching the goddamn $1 million movie in my cousin's basement again. This kind of stuff affects you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid too. It actually gave me nightmares.
Exactly. You know, I can tell you right now, I'm not sleeping tonight. That's the end of that.
But it is an unsettling scene, especially for that time.
Absolutely. And once again, Ray Milland's acting, the anguish in his face is fantastic.
Yeah, I have to say, you really feel for this guy. I mean, he seems so tortured in this movie.
And if you didn't have the right actor to do this, you could have had some cheesy actor, doing it, or a B actor, whatever. But Milland gives it real class.
Yeah, it's authentic. It feels very authentic. Yeah.
Now he's got to get out of there. And I think he comes up with a really good solution. He takes the $20,000 that he won in cash. He's got his cash in his hand, and he throws it up in the air and goes, "Free money, free." Well, I can tell you, $20,000 in cash buys you a lot of a getaway.
Everyone's reaching for the money, and
the girls are shoving it in their tops and stuff. It's great.
How many times has that gimmick been used in the movies? I wonder if it originated there.
Well, I thought if you're going to get away somehow, throwing $20,000 up in the air, that buys a lot of distractions.
So he runs out of the casino, and it's this it's an exterior 2-bit casino. It almost looks like a motel, like a seedy motel.
Right. And Valet Parker comes up, brings a car to this couple.
And he jumps in the car and steals it.
Ray Milland absconds with it. Yeah, just takes off. But But this is where it gets really good for me, John. I love the chase sequence.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yes.
And he's driving down these mountain roads,
kind
through
of desert,
California.
very desert type roads.
Driving through these desert roads and swerving back and forth. And the thing is, because we keep getting this POV, he can't really see.
He can barely see. Yeah.
Imagine racing down. He's overwhelmed with all this color and all this light hitting his retinas.
Well, you think about the whole setting is he's out in the desert in the middle of the day, so it's got to be super bright. What is that doing to him?
I mean, with your take your sunglasses off if you're ever out in California or you're ever in the desert out there. Oh my God, your eyes hurt so much. So this guy, you could just feel it, and you feel more and more like just you're behind the wheel.
Yeah.
The way the POVs are done, you feel like you're behind the wheel. You're seeing this is what you're seeing, and the car is swerving all back and forth along this swerving road. He's constantly on the wrong side of the road. He near misses a truck. He near misses cars. And then, of course, the Highway Patrol has a helicopter flying overhead as well.
Sure. Little MASH-like helicopter.
Yeah. Exactly. And he's looking up through the roof of his car, and I keep going, watch the road. What are you doing? Watch the road.
Well, that's also a very unsettling scene for me.
Absolutely.
He's alone in the desert driving, and this helicopter's tracking him, and just the fact that he can see through the roof. I thought that was just bizarre.
It would overwhelm your brain. I mean, if you're driving at night and it's hard to see, and then all of a sudden something juts out across the road in front of you, you're completely freaked out. Imagine having that all the time. The entire time you're trying to drive a car at high speed.
So luckily he finds this, he drives through this tunnel where the helicopter has to peel off, and he gets away.
He gets a short respite until his car goes right off the road.
Yes. And
it's nicely done. The crash is nicely done through editing. I mean, once again, Corman doesn't want to spend a lot of money on some sort of big effects thing or a stuntman or something. So it's all done through the cutting. And then he gets out of the car disoriented and has to walk along this dusty, hot terrain.
I have to say, I thought, again, was a great bit of acting on Ray Milland's part, because the guy is older, and he does, back in the 60s, when you kind of hit 60 and you didn't take care of yourself, you drank a lot, you weren't in the best physical shape.
Absolutely.
This seemed like a very physical scene. There's a lot of shots of him stumbling through the desert, up and down these inclines, over tracks.
I was saying the same thing. I'm looking at some going, God, I feel so sorry for the character, but I feel so sorry for Ray Milland.
Yeah.
Because at one point, he slips, and you see him kind of grab at his back, and I'm thinking, he just got hurt there. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, it was a very convincing scene, and
Absolutely.
You really feel for the character, because again, you have these eyes that can see everywhere, see anything, and you're in this bright, hot desert. And this guy's just stumbling around.
So he makes his way into this spot where there's a revival tent in the middle of the desert. That must have been a really nice, cool tent to be sitting in. Oh my God, 250 degrees, singing hymns. And he comes in, and there's a preacher up there, fire and brimstone preacher, and he's preaching away. And finally he says, do we have any sinners here? Do you want to absolve yourself of sin? And of course, Ray Milland walks up to the front. He starts to tell the congregants of the tent and the preacher about what he sees and all the visions he sees. And then we see his eyes. And John, once again, totally freaked me out. There's no irises anymore. They're totally black.
Totally black.
He looks like a snake or something. It's terrifying.
And I have to say, I can't imagine the lenses back in the day were that good. That must have been very painful for Ray Milland.
Well, method acting or not, I mean, he was really acting up a storm in the best possible sense, because the anguish on his face with those black eyes, I mean, it's overwhelming.
I thought it was a very interesting way to kind of bring this scientific kind of doctor when he's in this revival tent, and it suddenly becomes like this.
Good point.
It becomes this fire and brimstone thing, and And he does,
So
as you say, he goes into this speech that's kind of very biblical.
But he's talking about what he sees and basically seeing beyond what man should be seeing, etc. And the preacher says, "Sin and the devil." And he starts to quote, and I thought, oh God, please don't let it be this quote. I mean, I'm no Bible scholar, but I do know some quotes because I was a Catholic and went to church. And I go, please don't read that passage. And he goes, as Matthew said in chapter 5, if thine eye offends thee, pluck it out. And I'm going, oh God, I forgot this part of the movie. No.
You know it had to go there, Bob. It's a revival tent.
No, that's what's going to happen to me if I go to a revival tent. So you hear the echo, plug it out, plug it out, plug it out. And then Ray Milland bends out of frame and you can hear him say, plug it out. And he tilts back up again. And this is the image you're left with.
He rips his eyes out.
Yeah. And it's you're left with this image of Ray Milland without eyes, and they freeze on this frame. It's like, mercy, please.
Like
please,
red eye sockets.
Please no more.
I mean, it's kind of a cheesy effect, but it works.
It is. It's a cheesy effect, but it doesn't make any difference because it's the last thing you're going to see when the movie ends, and you're taking that home with you, whether it's from the movie theater or from the late night movie you just watched.
It's a cool shock effect, right?
It is a real good shock effect. Absolutely, positively. And the thing about it is, then they end the movie with these spectrorama credit sequence.
That's what I said earlier. Like, they're using every last inch of film they have.
Absolutely. So you got this great creepy score by Lex Baxter, and it's the creepy organ and this wailing banshee woman singing, and these images that we saw of Ray Milland's sight and the spectrorama effect that you're seeing throughout the film. And they run the credits through this with the score, and it just doesn't let you go.
Yeah.
It just doesn't let you go.
And that was a really scary part of the film, I thought, where he's driving around and he's looking out the window with this X-ray vision, and you're seeing through buildings. You're seeing through anything, people, skeletons, and it just felt...
How does your brain take that in? Like I said, maybe there's a reason why we only see 10%.
Well, I couldn't understand why he kept taking the drops, because I felt like I would just want it to freaking stop, you know?
Yeah.
Your mind would just go nuts. And that's basically what happens. He goes crazy.
He did find a simple way to make it stop. Now, the great thing about this is this movie was shot in 3 weeks for $300,000. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a 79-minute gem.
Yeah, and I have to say, when you see movies that are shot in 3 weeks, because we see plenty of them for low budgets,
sure.
You can see rough around the edges.
Absolutely.
You know, in this movie is so tight. But besides like the schlocky effects, which comes with the territory, it's really put together well, because you don't see the rough edges. It
works so well, John, and it brought back a lot of memories, creepy memories. But it put me, it was a time capsule for me. It put me right back in the place in the 1960s where I was when I first saw this movie. So
well, it hasn't lost any of its power. I mean, I think it's I was watching this going, because when my nieces visit, I show them like some odd films and horror films, whatever. I was watching this going, oh, they would love to see this, because it still has its power. It's still very creepy.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And, you know, as I said earlier, Corman is considered the king of the bees, but he was a craftsman. He knew how to make money, but he also knew how to make good movies. So my hat's off to Roger for this one.
Definitely. Good job, Roger. Bob, it's that time of the year.
My favorite time of the year, John.
Which is?
It's Halloween, and of course, you got to have scary movies for Halloween.
Oh, yeah. For the last 2 years, we've come up with a list of horror films we like, and this year, these are ours. I'm going to start with a film. It's not an obvious horror film, but it is a very spooky film. Rebecca, 1940, Alfred Hitchcock.
Total mood, John. It's total mood. And those scenes with that evil governess or whatever she is.
Mrs. Danvers.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Played by Judith Anderson. She's the housekeeper. She's like this evil housekeeper.
Absolutely.
And Laurence Olivier, Joan Fontaine. And basically, you know, it's the classic gloomy mansion where the new young wife is being haunted by the specter of the dead former wife of Laurence Olivier. And it's all mood, this film, but it is spooky. It creeps up on you. It's a good little spooky film to watch.
It's great. Yes, it's a classic Hitchcock. Okay, my first pick is The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1945. It's directed by Albert Lewin, and it's starring George Sanders and Hurd Hatfield as Dorian Gray. Also starring Donna Reed and Angela Lansbury, a very young Angela Lansbury.
Mm.
This movie's terrific. It's a black and white film, but it feels like a color film. There is a color sequence in it when you finally get to see the picture of Dorian Gray, the actual painting of Dorian Gray. It's so full of mood. It's so full of malice. And the character of Dorian Gray really, he is pure evil. So I just got the chills thinking about it. It's a great movie. Check that one out, man. Great stuff.
Okay, my next one. I'm going in chronological order here. It's not quite a horror film, but it's got horror elements in it. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Now, I know this is on one of our lists, but we didn't really talk about it. 1948, directed by Charles Barton. And what's creepy about it is it brings all the Universal monsters together in one movie. You got actors. You got Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr.
Right.
But Glenn Strange is Frankenstein.
Right.
And it's a funny comedy, but when Abbott and Costello come across the monsters, there are some very creepy scenes, I remember.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And you know, my favorite lines in the movie: "Oh chick, oh chick." It's a very funny movie, but has some very cool. If you're a fan of Universal horror films, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Werewolf, it's a good movie to watch.
Well, what I like is they lifted that line from "Hold That Ghost" because his Abbott's name was Chuck then, and he said, "Oh Chuck, oh Chuck."
How can we do that again? I know we change a couple of letters.
It's a classic line. Let's use it again. Okay, so my next one is The Revenge of Frankenstein, 1958. It's a Hammer horror. It's directed by Terence Fisher, and it's starring Peter Cushing as quote-unquote Dr. Stein. He's on the lam now. This is the second in the installment of Frankenstein movies that Hammer did. And Cushing is terrific. I mean, Cushing is always a joy to watch. He's really great in this. And what's terrific about the script is they don't have to worry about any of the stuff in the original story, any of the Mary Shelley stuff. They're free to take Dr. Frankenstein and his experiments and just go nuts. And they do. It's a terrific movie. The cinematography is by Jack Asher. The music is by Leonard Salzleo. And it's terrific.
Yeah. We've talked about the Hammer films. They're, again, for the budgets they had, they did some great work with horror films.
Oh, it's magnificent. I mean, the color in these are just so great, and they look so full and so lush. And they've taken all of the Universal horror films and remade them. But they do it, and they take it to another level in a different manner entirely. Great stuff. Great stuff.
My next is The Howling, directed by Joe Dante in 1981, written by John Sayles.
Yeah, absolutely. Really fun.
Stars Dee Wallace and Patrick McNee.
Yes, from the Avengers.
John Steed. And it also has some other actors, John Carradine, Slim Pickens.
You got to have John Carradine.
And it's a great, in the 80s, for some reason, there was a whole resurgence of werewolf films in the 80s. I don't know why. There's, American Werewolf in London and Wolfen and
Right.
The Howling. They all came out within a year or so together. And this one has some really cool special effects by Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin.
Rob Bottin. Thanks. I always thought Rob Bottin because I thought his name resembled robot for some reason.
No, he was the man of the hour at that point in time.
Well, this was his first lead as a special effects guy.
Yeah.
And it's because John Sayles wrote it. It's a really cool script, really tight script, a fun werewolf genre film.
Yeah, really great. Joe Dante had a lot of fun with it. He's a fun director too. I'm going to go, and it's kind of in the same time period, if I remember correctly. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
Now, I starring Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, and Keith David. I just saw it again recently, and I have to say that thing, holy shit, that it holds up so well. It's the writing, the script by Bill Lancaster.
It's one of the best horror films.
It really is. As far as science fiction horror, it's fantastic. I mean, the effects are up to scale. Once again, Rob Bottin. The effects are amazing. I mean, they're just incredible. My favorite effect is when the head of one of the characters falls off onto the floor and then sprouts these like Alaskan king crab legs, and then these two antenna eyes. You see it now. This is not CGI. This is not.
It's all practical effects.
It's all practical effects. I just thought, how the hell does he do this? It's amazing, amazing.
Yeah. If you're numb with CGI effects these days, because to me it all looks cartoonish. Watch this film. You'll be amazed.
Oh my God. It's incredible what they were able to achieve. And my favorite line, it's weird and it's pissed off.
My next is Ju-on, The Grudge, 2002. It's a Japanese film, Takashi Shimizu. This is one of the creepiest haunted house films ever made.
Really?
It's so good. Basically,
How good is it, John?
This house is cursed because I don't want to tell you the story. There were previous murders or deaths that happened in the house, and whoever moves into it becomes cursed. And there's no major special effects. It's all done practical. It's a really scary ghost movie. If you're into that kind of thing, you should see it. The Grudge. There was actually the same director remade an American version, which was also good. It's called The Grudge, and it's not a remake. It's just this I forget the actress, an American girl in Japan moves into this house, and it's just almost the same story from an American point of view, but the original Ju-on, The Grudge. Great movie. Okay,
so I'm going to jump back to 1957. This is a terrific movie. Great black and white photography, and a guy who knows how to work well with black and white photography, Jacques Tourneur. It's called Night of the Demon. Also, you can find it, you'll see it as Curse of the Demon, but I believe the original title is Night of the Demon. Directed by Jacques Tourneur. And it's a modern day, or at least 1957 modern day, story about devil worship. And the effects are practical, they're simple. The mood is tense throughout the whole movie. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. Certainly a prime one to see for Halloween. Great stuff.
Yeah, Jacques Tourneur.
Cat People
did some great grade B Hollywood horror films.
Yes, and he also did great noir stuff, like Out of the Past.
Yeah. He wasn't a low-budget director, but almost like a precursor to like Corman, in that because of the budgets he had, there were B movies. He used a lot, there weren't major special effects, but he kind of used practical things, and it was they were very creepy.
he was really about mood.
Yeah,
he was really about mood, and that's what he did best. And unfortunately, there is a monster that comes into at the end of it because the studio insisted on it. It was not the way he wanted it, so you have to just deal with the monster at the end. but the movie is terrific. There's a ton of mood to it. And yeah, even though Jacques Tourneur, he worked in quote unquote B movies, I think he was really comfortable working in the B movies because the studios really left you alone.
Yes.
You know, if you brought that baby in on time or even under budget, oh, they love that. You could pretty much do whatever you wanted. And he was able to create really beautiful films on a low budget.
Well, if you look at a lot of the B movies from the classic Hollywood period, they're better than the A movies because, as you said, your budget's limited. The scripts are usually much more inventive because they had to be.
Exactly. That's what makes them gems.
My next and last film is a Korean film called The Host, 2006. The director is Bong Joon-ho, and it's the classic monster film. Basic plot where the American military in present-day Korea drops a whole bunch of chemicals in the water, and it creates this giant fish-like monster who terrorizes this Korean city, and he kidnaps this girl.
Does he breathe fire?
No, it's just this weird kind of bizarre, giant, deformed fish monster. And it's kind of like a over-the-top monster film, but it's really fun.
Great.
It's got some comedy to it. You just have to go with it because it's just a well-done kind of monster movie, if you like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. It sounds like a lot of fun. I have not seen it. I'll have to check that one out. My final one is from 1979, directed by David Cronenberg, The Brood. Now, The Brood isn't just a well-made movie. The Brood is a masterpiece. I have never seen anything like The Brood in my life. It is creepy. It is gut-wrenching. It is horrifying. And it stays with you for a long time. I remember watching it over a friend's house one night, and I had to get in the car and drive home. And I can tell you, it's a very uneasy drive because they have these in the movie. This woman gives birth to these brood children, basically children of anger. The anger in her is created, and these fetuses are made from this pent up anger she has, and they're terrifying. They're really terrifying.
Well,
and
yeah.
And Cronenberg describes this as, and this is my favorite thing description-wise, Cronenberg describes this as his Kramer versus Kramer. He was going through a divorce at this time, and he really wanted to kill his wife. And this is what came of it. And to call him the king of visceral horror is not to be scratching the surface with that term, because it is visceral.
Yeah, it's definitely a masterpiece of like mood and pacing, and it's a definite like slow burn. And when you get to the reveal of what these things are, it's really powerful.
That's amazing. It's amazing. All right, John, I'm gonna break with our agreement, and I'm gonna just throw one quick one in. I won't even describe it. I just got to say these words. 2 words. Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep.
Bubba Hotep. I'm just gonna say that. It's 2002. It's directed by Don Coscarelli. It's starring Bruce Campbell and Ozzie Davis. And that's all I'm going to say. Go see it if you need a good, fun movie, a good laugh, and a good little piece of horror. Go for it. Bubba Hotep.
If you're a fan of horror films, you know Bruce Campbell is going to bring his game to it.
Bring us all. Yes, sirree, Bob. Bubba Hotep.
Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Ornowitz for his music.
And of course, our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetour.libsyn.com to leave comments or email us with questions. That's filmdetour.libsyn.com. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can also find us on YouTube.